The advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or a trial. Trials really do put you in the driver's seat, so get out there and get one going. Before we get started, we just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible: Mobility Engineering, Driving Well, and Williams OT. This show takes time and money to put together, and we are forever grateful for their passion for our industry. Okay, enough of the business. Let's get on to the interview with Jenny and Brad.
G'day and welcome to the Drive Able podcast. My name's Brad Williams from Williams OT in South Australia, and joining me as always is Jenny Gribben from Driving Well in Queensland. How are you, Jenny?
I'm good, Brad. How are you going?
I'm really good, and as always, I'm really excited by this chat.
What
we're going to do
today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about, if you've been listening to this podcast, you will hear us talking about high-level van conversions. And what we're going to do today is, it's been a long time coming. We've got Robert, who's the CEO and the owner of Freedom Motors Australia. Freedom is one of the van converters that we've talked about getting your van to Sydney as an example, or to get the floor lowered. So we're going to unpack that with Robert from Freedom Motors. They've started converting vehicles back in 1997. So we're going to talk about what's gone into that process, how they started, where they're up to now, and really what goes into lowering a floor of a vehicle. It should be a really good chat.
Yeah, I'm really keen to hear the technical side of things, because as an occupational therapist, we really concerned about the function and finding a solution that will work for our clients who need that. But not many of us have much knowledge in all of the bits and pieces that go into it from a technical and mechanical and engineering perspective. So I'm very, very keen to hear about that.
I first met them and actually went to the workshop and went in and saw the production line and what goes into this in about 2010 or something like that, 2012 maybe, somewhere around that period, and blown away. So I'm hoping that you get a good sense with this chat about what goes into it, and let's get him on and get this started.
Let's do it.
Mobility Engineering is Australia's leading automotive product supplier for disability customers. We have installers all across the country, over 100 of them, and we have the largest range of mobility products for vehicles in the country. Get in touch with Mobility Engineering for any of your driving solutions.
Hi, we have Robert Van Mullekom from Freedom Motors with us today. We're very excited to be having a chat with you about your products. Robert, we were just having a bit of a chat leading into getting started, and you're just really sharing your passion about what you do and what your products are. Can you please tell us about yourself and how Freedom Motors got started in the disability space?
Okay, my name is Robert Van Mullekom. I'm married to Tanya. I've got three beautiful girls. I'm the oldest of 6 children. I'm the managing director of Freedom Motors Australia, and I really love what I'm doing. So that's a bit about me. A bit about my background. A lot of people don't know this about me. I've got an accent, a Dutch accent, but I was actually born in Australia. And that's because my parents migrated here in the late 50s. And my dad was Dutch and my mom was Hungarian. She came she fled with her parents Hungary when she was young. And my parents met each other at a let's say, a refugee center in Holland. They got married and went to Australia. I was born here, and about 7-8 years later, they decided to go back to the Netherlands. And by that time, they had 4 kids. And my dad started, because he had a big opportunity to start an engineering company over there. So that's where the love for engineering and making products came from, because at a young age, the factory was actually next to the house that we lived. So every day I was in my dad's factory, and I was allowed to sweep the floor and the workers and so on. And yeah, so
Little apprentice.
yeah, and then I started to learn, and then when I was about 10 years old, my dad put me actually on machines. Then you couldn't do that in these days anymore. But he would have a grinding machine or a milling machine or something like that, and it was automatic with a button, and he would say, push that button, and then take that product out, and then put this product in, and then push the button, and then while the machine is going, use this vernier to measure. It should be this size, and that's how I started learning how to use, using metrology equipment like verniers or micrometers and so on. So that led to I did my normal high school and so on, and then I decided to go to engineering school, which I did. And then I thought, hey, I can go and work for my dad, because I really loved, what my dad did and so on, and I wanted to follow in his footsteps, and I wanted to become a manager as well of a company. And then my dad said to me, no, you can't come and work for me, because you're going to have that stigma, the son of the boss, and my dad already had more than 100 people working for him by that time, and he didn't want to introduce me as so he said to me, go and work for the opposition first and get some knowledge over there, and then maybe when you've got some extra skills, you've actually worked on the floor somewhere for real, then come back to me, and then we'll see what we can do. And I did that for about 3 years. And
in the automotive industry, Robert, in terms of engineering?
No, this was like making parts. My dad was into all kinds of engineering, making sprockets, making drive shafts, making parts for the defense industry in Holland. Anything that was out of steel, aluminium, or something where you can use a milling machine or a lathe or grinding, or even into chemical milling and so on. And so I did that, and I knocked back on my dad's door, and he said, yeah, you can come now. And actually I got some really nice jobs, because I was really good in how can you do something quicker. I would look at something and go, oh, that takes so long. If I would do it this way, that way, then I could do it quicker. So every time somebody went on a holiday, my dad goes, go and have a look at that guy's job and see if he can improve it. And then, of course, I would see all the problems and change things. And when the guy came back from holiday, he wasn't always happy.
That's a good way to. That's a good.
Because suddenly he had to work twice as hard, because I figured out that they were sometimes, taking it easy, and instead of putting a mold in the oven and waiting. Instead of putting the next one together while the mold's in the oven, they were just waiting for the thing to come out of the oven, but in the meantime, I made another mold, so they could work on the other mold while the other, and things like that.
Yeah,
I might use that. I might use that trick. Yeah, no one would want to go take holidays or leave or those type of things.
And that's what ended up happening, because everybody goes like, I hope Rob's not going to do my job while I'm gone. So, but I got that reputation, and I always got always the good jobs, because I was really good in what I did. I could always think like 5 steps ahead. Well, some people do a job and they just go, I'll just do this, and then they go, okay, what's next? I was always thinking about the next steps, because I was always making sure that the next machine that I had to work on, that it was free. I didn't have to put the job aside, and then
So how did it transition into Freedom Motors then? How did that start, and how did it come to Australia?
Yeah, so I started working for my dad, and then suddenly my dad goes, oh, I want to go back to Australia, and I missed the nice weather. I missed the relaxed atmosphere over there. And so he asked all of us, and we all agreed. By that time, there were 6 kids. We were actually called the Brady Bunch over there, because there was 3 boys and 3 girls, and Dad had the black hair, and Mum had the beehive, going, and in those days, same as the show. And we all went back to Australia and started an engineering shop here in St Mary's, where we still are. We rented a few units, and we had the containers come over from Holland, and my dad took all the machines that were virtually on the machine graveyards, he took them to Australia, and the first thing we did in 1984, we came back in 84. We started fixing up all these machines and got them all, according to Australian electricity and so on, got them all going. And before we knew it, my brother had to go out and look for work. And another reason why we came here to Australia is because we had a really fantastic product in the Netherlands, which is for scanning your body. And actually, we still make that product now. That business still exists and it's still thriving. We were making products out of lead that were used in the nuclear medicine departments and hospitals all over the world. So we were working for Toshiba, Hitachi, Siemens, Philips, all the big companies, and we still do. And we still ship all the products that we make are still exported all over the world. 99% of all the products we make. That's why we came to Australia, because from Australia we can service Japan, which was a big upcoming market, which was much further away from Europe in those days. And then when we came over in '84, there was no mobile phones and there was not even a fax machine. There was all telex and stuff like that. I mean, it's only like not so long ago. And North America as well. We did a lot of business in North America, and it's still going. That business is still going strong now. But while we were building our business here in Australia, the years went on and on. My dad had a friend also from Holland that moved to the States, and he started a business called Freedom Motors USA in America. And my dad and him, they saw each other when my dad traveled to the United States. And one day my dad comes over and he's thinking about doing wheelchair access vehicles. And we're looking around for vehicles to do, but the vehicles that they had in the States, they called them minivans, and they were front-wheel drive. They didn't have them in Australia. I think there was a Tarago, but it wasn't front-wheel drive here. So in 1997, Chrysler Voyager came out with a front-wheel drive minivan, or what we call here people mover in Australia. And my dad decided, let's buy 2 kits from America from his friend, and let's modify them and see if there's a business to be had in Australia.
Wow.
So that's how it started. So we built the prototype, and then we had it sitting there, and my dad goes, because we're all family business, it's one of the reasons why we came back, and we're all working in the business. My dad goes, what about this as a second product, so we don't have all our eggs in one basket? Shall we try this? And we said, listen, we don't know nothing about this. We don't have anybody in the family that is in a wheelchair, or we didn't have a clue about this business. But we decided to do some research, and I don't think there was any internet yet in those days. So we just looked if there's any magazines, or is there, what is there to be found. We didn't even know what an OT was in those days. We were just green behind the ears in this whole industry. But the thing is, to build a wheelchair access vehicle in those days wasn't that hard, because the regulations weren't that stiff as they are now.
Well, were there any regulations then?
There were, not as they are now, and I'll explain the regulations later on. But in those days, you had to get your car still approved by an engineer, and then the engineer in those days had way more power than they have now. They would go and have a look at how you built this, and they go, yeah, that's strong enough, and they will go and have a look. Oh, I'm okay with that. And if you made your own restraints or whatever, yeah, that seems to be all right. And then so when we started in 97, the regulations weren't that bad, but you need to get your car signed off by an engineer. So we always used an independent engineer.
Yeah.
So so like I said, selling was the hard part. Where do you go to? But anyway, we built the first car, and then I'm not sure if you've heard about the Bondi case. There was a big case in Sydney here about somebody that had gone to Bondi and dove into the water and had an accident, and then ended up in a wheelchair. I'm not sure if you know about that, because Bondi got sued and for a lot of money, for millions of dollars, and Bondi Beach lost because they didn't have enough signing in those days about, hey, there could be underwater sandbars or things like that.
Mm.
So, and this person ended up being our very first customer.
Mm-hmm.
And that vehicle that we built for him that time, that's been going around for over 30 years. I'm not sure if it's still around, but it's been around for 30 years because they never really traded it in, as far as I know. But that's how it started.
Mm.
And I think the first year was one vehicle, I think, you know, and the second year was maybe 5 vehicles. But because we're busy with the other business, because our other business was in those days like, you know, that was our bread and butter. And this thing, you know, we were pumping money in from the other business to get this business going. My dad decided to put on a manager to run the place. And it started getting better and better. And he was like the manager, you know, that he was running the shop for my dad. And he was also doing the sales. And it started going better and better till one day he decided to leave. And we didn't know then, but he told us that he was going to do something else. But he ended up going in opposition with us. He decided, hey, just when we started, Freedom started to make money, started to take off, this guy decided, oh, I'm gonna get involved in this thing myself. Luckily, we had a non-disclosure agreement with this guy, non-competition, non-disclosure. And we ended up having to sue him, and he lost. I think he ended up going to jail as well because he had all our drawings, he had all our contacts. We found out that he had approached 7 of our customers and told them that the company name had changed from Freedom Motors to Wheelchair Accessible Vehicles, and that's how we got us. That's how we got us.
Okay.
Wow.
So that's a bit of a dark area in our history. But after that, it's virtually all positive because I had we were looking for another person in to look after this business, or at least to head up the sales. And in our other business that we had, I had a person working for me. His name was Gary Dale. He had only been working for me for two or 3 years, and he was really good in what he did, and especially in the sales department. He was very good talker. And he comes to me and says, hey, I know a little bit about this industry because I have a daughter in a chair, and I know where to knock on doors and things like that. So we made a deal with Gary to start with Freedom, and after that we never looked back because Gary was a real asset to our business. And I'm actually saying it this way because every time I talk about Gary, I sort of get a little bit emotional. But Gary was one of those persons that if you had 100 people working for you and suddenly the company would go broke and you had to choose one person that you will keep, you would say Gary's going to stay because that guy was as loyal. He was very loyal and very direct. You knew with Gary, you knew what type of person you had working for you. You know, Gary was you could trust him. You know, based on the history, Gary, you can trust 100%. If he told you it's going to be this way, it was going to be that way. You know, and he helped us build up the business. We backed him up. He backed us up, and he helped us build up the business to where it is now.
What does it look like now, Robert? What does the business look like now? So workshop.
Okay, so we have no, we're still in St. Mary's. We're in our own, let's say, our own factory now. We have about I would say
just that's St. Mary's in Sydney. If people are listening into this, like this is a national podcast. Jenny's in Brisbane. I'm in Adelaide. So yeah, that's St. Mary's in Sydney, which is western suburbs. Is that right, Robert? That's
western suburbs near Penrith, near the Blue Mountains.
Yeah.
So about an hour's drive outside of Sydney itself.
Yeah. So just clearing that up. So yeah, what does Freedom look like now? So you've gone. I'm fascinated by the engineering in the 80s.
Brad, you keep jumping in and out of mute.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm having a bit of troubles with my computer today, so sorry about that for listeners. Where's freedom up to nowadays? I know that I'm fascinated by the 70s and 80s and the engineering and what happened through that period of Australia's growth, the ingenuity, the design, the innovation that came through that with the baby boomers after the war. They were very creative people. But where has it evolved to now? What does Freedom Motors look like now in St Mary's in Sydney?
Now, we have on the floor here, we've got about 25 people on the floor here. And we now have salespeople all over Australia. So we have people in Western Australia. We have people we've got somebody in South Australia, Queensland, Victoria, and of course here in Sydney. We've also started the business in Western Australia, because Western Australia is virtually on the other side of Australia, and the transport and so on is a little bit high. So I started working with a guy called Troy Rowe. He was working for another company before. Did a very good job repairing our vehicles when they needed to. But one day we sort of got together and decided that he wanted to come and work for us. And same there again, never look back, because Troy and now his wife are working for us as well. Very loyal people, very great people to work with. Troy is, like me, very good in the engineering side of things, and very, he will help people out, even if it's nothing to do with wheelchair accessible vehicles. He'll help people out whenever he can with his knowledge. Like I said, we have people all over Australia. We believe at the moment that we're number one in lowered floor vehicle modifications, not buses. We do some buses and so on with lifters and so on, but the lower floor modifications. And that's
what vehicles are you doing with the floor?
Yeah,
so,
let's unpack lowered floor. Let's really get into what do you mean by lowered floor? So we have people that are listening to this that might be clients, but we've also got OTs as well that are prescribing this. We've got a whole variety of people. We've got people that are listening this just starting up workshops as well. So what goes into a lowered floor vehicle? What do you mean by that, Robert? And what's involved in a lowered floor? So let's start off with explaining what do you mean by lowered floor, and then what goes into it.
So, I mean, with a lower floor, you first need a donor vehicle. So the vehicle that you're going to choose has to have some interior size already to start off with. And in the olden days, it was just a bus with a lift inside. And that's what was available when we started doing these lowered floor modifications. But a lowered floor modification is where you virtually get a brand spanking new vehicle or a reasonably new vehicle, and you put it on the hoist, and you virtually take everything out of the inside of the vehicle. You take everything off the bottom, so all the seats, all the carpet, everything comes out of the vehicle. You take the suspension out, you take the exhaust out, you take the fuel tank out. You move or take the brake lines out, air conditioning lines if there are air conditioning lines, and you virtually start with an empty chassis, and then you cut a big fat hole in it. So because a wheelchair user wants to sit as high or in the same level as an able-bodied person in a car seat in the car, we drop the floor down sometimes by a foot, like say 330 centimeters, or sometimes even more. We try to get the floor as flat as possible, but when we say we cut a big hole in it, you still have to keep the integrity of the car as much as possible intact. So we try not to cut into chassis beams. We try not to cut anything that might be a major structure, and if we do, we need to rebuild that major structure that was there before to make sure that the car is as strong or maybe slightly stronger than it was before. So we cut the hole in the vehicle, and then we have a tray or kit or whatever we call it. Before, the tray used to be a fully welded framework, and that you used to slide that into the car, and we used to weld that in. But nowadays it's all this is our technique. I'm not talking about what other people do now, but our technique is now we don't do any welding anymore on the car itself, because we found over the years, when you weld on a vehicle, you also put tension in the vehicle, because you're not just doing a spot weld like the cars were put together before. Now you're doing a weld over here, and now you're doing a weld over there, and now you weld here. And some of those welds are pretty big, because you're welding a lowered floor tray inside a vehicle, and you're trying to weld it back to chassis beams and so on. So some of these welds are heavy duty. So what can happen is your car can start twisting while it's sitting on the hoist and so on. And even though you will do everything to keep the car straight, or you can have it sitting on framework and so on, there's always an element that later on, if you close the back door, hey, there was a shift in the car, and then you had to start playing around with fitting the doors in and so on again. So we now have a technique where we don't do any glue, any welding anymore. It involves gluing and screwing and pop riveting and so on, where the tray is assembled virtually inside the vehicle. And then, of course, it's not just, when the tray is in, you got a nice lower floor. Then we have to find a spot for the fuel tank, because the fuel tank used to be somewhere under the car. It used to be plastic. Of course, it's very hard to make something out of plastic. In the olden days, we used to modify, the first Chrysler Voyager, we used to modify the plastic fuel tank, but you can't do that anymore. That's not legal anymore. So we built our own fuel tanks, and we built them out of stainless steel, because we wanted to be built out of the best material available. We don't want them to rust. We don't want, we wanted a good quality product. So from the beginning, since we started making fuel tanks, so they've always been stainless steel, and also for the strength, but also that they stay clean on the inside and so on. And of course, they cost a little bit more money to make, but we've had really good results with stainless steel. And then normally the exhausts that used to be under the car, they used to have like mufflers, this big, and but now we don't have that space anymore. So now we need to try to maneuver the exhaust system past the lowered floor, and then try to still bring some kind of muffler, introduce some kind of muffler that reduces the noise somewhat. We, all our cars, especially if it's a diesel, it's not a major problem. If it's a petrol vehicle, you'll find that you can't always bring the noise back to the level it was when the car was new. And it sounds more like sometimes they sound a little bit like a V8 or whatever, but that's the compromise you have when you modify a vehicle. You can't make it exactly the same as the original vehicle. Also, brake lines have to be redone again. Air conditioning lines, we reconnect them again and get them all going again. And then the suspension, because in Australia, we have luckily, we can still do what we do in Australia, which they don't do in Europe anymore. In Europe, they cannot change the suspension. All the vehicles have to go over the suspension and so on. So let's say in a Kia Carnival, we have our own independent suspension. So instead of having linking arm suspensions, like lots of arms controlling the suspension, we now have a suspension arm that is on 2 bearings, let's say, and we can actually adjust it a little bit also. And with shimming, we can also change the suspension, the camber, and the toe in and toe out. So we have a very strong, and we're known to have a very strong suspension. Since our very first one, we've only had the very first one fail. After that, we had none of the suspensions ever fail. And that's because we also, make our own shafts, make our own bearing blocks. Everything is done in-house as much as possible to keep the quality, of course, because it's all about the quality at the end result. Because when you build a vehicle like this and you also match the warranty of the vehicle, you really don't want to see the vehicle back again after it's done, because you're wasting time fixing problems that you don't want to be fixing. So we build our vehicles high quality. We have a full-time QC guy that walks around, makes checks here, checks there, in different stages during the production. So that is all done, and then at the end we put a ramp on the back of the tray, which fits inside the door. So we try also to build the vehicle so if you're driving behind it, hope most people won't even know that it's a wheelchair access vehicle, because a lot of people like to be in a vehicle and that doesn't look like a Popemobile in the olden days. Remember, there used to be like these flash cabs before, and they used to have the bubble, and everybody knew that's a wheelchair access vehicle. That was like a display vehicle. And now people can have a normal people mover. In a lot of cases now, we don't even lift them anymore, because even that now, the lifting that we used to do, that was to create a bigger space. But now with all the radars and all the sensors that the vehicles have nowadays, if you lift them, you're changing the geometry of where all the lasers are pointing at. So and then the radars are pointing at. So we try not to lift the vehicles anymore, and we don't even lift the Staria anymore. So Staria is our main product at the moment. Kia Carnival is the secondary. I think we probably 50-50. And then we do a small Seltos that is for small stature people that are not so big in the wheelchair, because the opening is only like 1300 millimeters. And we also built that one as a self-drive, because a lot of people don't want to have a big vehicle. And of course, there's some other models like Volkswagen multivans and Volkswagen Caddies and so on. Not so much anymore, because they're getting more and more expensive. But besides the normal modifications, which is our big business, we also have gone in the last 10 years. We started going into drive from wheelchair vehicles, drive from transfer, and so on. And that's now becoming a much bigger part of our business as well.
Well, let's just explain that, Robert. So you've got some different product lines, some for passengers and some that want to actually be able to drive.
Yes.
Let's talk about the difference between lowered floor for a passenger in a wheelchair. Let's say a power wheelchair, because that's what people can picture driving into the back of the van. What are the two major differences between like a passenger conversion, so you're a passenger in the car, and driving? What technologically and engineering wise, what's the difference there for those two different types of conversions?
Okay, so so for a passenger conversion, we call that a basic modification, even though it's not basic. There's a lot to it, and there's a lot.
We're picking that up. There's the suspension, the power units, the brake lines, everything. There's a lot that goes into it.
A lot that goes in it, but also let's talk about the engineering of the testing part of it. So and then I'll get into the wheelchair drive from wheelchairs and so on. So when you modify a vehicle, the very first one, we're not saying you have to do it on all the vehicles, but when you do the very first one, you need to do a torsion and beaming test. And we don't do the torsion and beaming test in the house, because we don't have the equipment for that. We get somebody independent to come out. They got all the equipment. They got a frame that they put your vehicle on. And what they virtually do is they load the vehicle up with sandbags and weights to mimic the amount of people in the car. And also they'll add cargo and whatever. So they load the vehicle up. And what they do is they virtually measure the bend of the vehicle. And also what they do is they got like a framework on the front of the vehicle, and they put weight on one side and they twist the vehicle. So they want to measure the twists and they want to measure the bend of the vehicle. So that's what they call the torsion and beaming. And you do that on the vehicle before it gets modified, and after it's modified. So we don't do that on customers' vehicles. We do that always on our own prototype vehicles, the very first one we built. Because if it fails, you've got a vehicle that you virtually can maybe throw away if it buckled the roof or whatever. I've heard many stories of these things happening. So luckily, we always know where to look at and where to make it stronger and where to make it weaker to get the right combination of strength in the vehicle. So that's one of the biggest things in a car to modify a car. Then if you're going to put seats in it, all the seats that you bring in, you can buy them, or you can make them yourself, or you can modify a seat. But every seat has to be has to have some kind of certificate that has been pool tested. And that means the seat goes on the rig, and then they put chains on it, and they one on the headrest, one from the back. They mimic a person in the chair, and they do some kind of pool test on there to virtually mimic or act like a 50K accident. And that seat is not supposed to break out of the floor. So you're not only measuring the seat, you're also measuring the anchorage on the floor of the car. So we have to make something that mimics the car, and so on. So they do the pull test on that. So if we, Kia Carnival, we modify the Kia Carnival seats, we need to do that test. We also put.
Can I just unpack that just for people that want to know why you're modifying seats? Is because we need a little bit more room for that wheelchair to actually
100%.
fit in, don't we? So
Yes.
the chairs go from being a wide body seat to maybe 3/4, is it, Robert? Roughly.
Yeah.
The
minimum we can go for an adult is 410 millimeters, and you can go smaller, but then you're going to a child seat. I think it's 35 centimeters.
So one of the common setups that we see with people from a passenger perspective, so a wheelchair user traveling in their wheelchair, their electric power wheelchair, and that they'd be positioned often in the center of the second row with seats on either side. So this is what Brad and Robert are talking about with the seats on either.
The middle seat of the three across the back.
100%.
Need to be smaller to fit that wheelchair, so right up into that second row area.
Yeah.
And there's other things to look at, especially when you talk about seats. So yes, like you said, we modify. Let's say the seat is this big before, and then we modify the seats to be smaller. And we make it to the minimum size of an adult bum, let's say, and that's Australian to the Australian design rules. And then they have to be tested to make sure that we haven't weakened the seat or anything like that. But also, we don't move the seat closer to the wall, because there's things like that nobody talks about, but there's like a curtain airbag. All the cars now have curtain airbags, yeah. And if you move that seat closer to the wall, you're going to make the distance of where the airbag can go in between the seats and the wall of the car. You're going to make that smaller. So that's not a major issue, because a lot of times the airbag will still go through there. But what happens is we find a lot of times when the seat gets moved closer to the wall of the car, the children that sit in these seats intend to go and sleep against the door, because now the door is closer to the seats than before. And that could be dangerous in case the vehicle gets into an accident somehow, and these airbags come down. You don't want to have some children with their heads leaning against the doors and so on. So these are things that we always think about regarding safety and so on. And that's why, when, let's say in the case of Kia Carnival, we only have a certain size because we don't want to go any wider because of safety reasons in our opinion. And our engineer won't sign off on it anyway, because he thinks the same way. But then we put in things like, because the spare wheel that used to be under the vehicle, it goes inside the vehicle now, because people that are traveling a long distance, they want to have a spare wheel in the car. So even the bracket where the spare wheel goes on, together with the spare wheel, needs to be pull tested, because you don't want that to break loose in an accident. You're having a big accident, and this wheel suddenly with steel brackets breaks off and it's flying around the car while you're in an accident. You don't want that. The same
Seatbelts is another thing. Yeah, seatbelts are another thing that have to be redesigned.
Yeah, so we because the walls of the vehicle are too far away to go over the shoulders, we've now put poles inside the vehicles, and we've also put a height adjuster. So for a smaller person to go over the shoulder, there is a height adjuster that allows the family to bring the shoulder strap down to the right position. But also these poles need to be tested to make sure that they not going to buckle or come loose inside the vehicle. So everything you virtually bolt back into the vehicle again has to be tested. Even the docking systems that we use for wheelchairs. And for people that don't know what a docking system is virtually replacing wheelchair restraints. Normally, if you have a wheelchair and they have 4 points in each corner where you put a wheelchair restraint on so the vehicle can travel in, so the wheelchair can travel inside the vehicle. We now bolt a device on the bottom of the wheelchair so that it can actually dock into a docking system. And it's virtually like an iron going into something that's the same shape, but to hold it in position. So you can just you can just drive your wheelchair or push your wheelchair or drive your wheelchair into the docking system. You hear a beep and then a click, and there's a little thing that shows you if it's red or green. So if it's green, you're locked in, and that's all it is. Your wheelchair is secure, and in a lot of cases, a docking system is way more safer than using restraints, especially when there's more people involved restraining the wheelchairs in the vehicles.
You're turning the wheelchair into the car seat. So it's an actual really vital area that people get right. So if you're using tie downs and restraints to hold the wheelchair down, that needs to be done right. And we're sometimes relying on people that are a new carer and they don't know how to do that. So if you're listening to this and you've got tie downs, make sure that your person that's doing the tie downs is very well trained on how to do that. And if you need advice on that, make sure you get in contact with either your OT or your mobility supplier. Very important area of it. Robert, all of this testing sounds very expensive and a massive setup. So you invest a lot into this area. I just want to bring you back to the question about, so we've got a passenger conversion where you can either, so there's three options for people that are listening to this. You can come in and be in the third row of the minivan. So there's usually the front row, the middle row, or the third row. So you're basically sitting, for a better terminology, sitting in the boot. And you're that seventh person in the sixth person in the car. So 2 in the front, 3 in the middle, and the 6th person in the back. So for families with a lot of people, that's a nice conversion to be able to get the amount of seats that you need. The next one is getting through to the middle row, where you're the middle occupant of the middle row, and you can have 2 children either side if you need to, but you're saying, yeah, the seats are big enough to have 2 adults on the side there. So maybe a carer, somebody to help with making sure breathing's okay, or passing food or drink or those type of things. A carer might sit next to you in the back, and that's something that some people don't always think about.
And we call that the family design, because you're together with the family in that position. And you can also, there's options for fold down seats that come behind that into the boot. So into the boot area, so you can still have a 7-seat car. There's a bit of understanding that people have to know about that. But then what we were leading to before is that Freedom have really advanced their product line and their engineering now to have drive from wheelchair position, where you lower the floor all the way through to the steering wheel. And that's even a bigger job.
That's an even bigger job. So I'm imagining that if you're lowering the floor all the way through to there, the first thing that pops into my head is where does the actual petrol tank go? How do you make, and all those other things under the car, that used to run through a drivetrain or through a center console or into that underneath the seats. That's all now taken away. Where does all that? Where do you make all that fit?
Yeah, and that's the problem of us modifiers. Where do you make it fit, and how big is it going to be, and so on. So yeah, you just said it correctly. In this case of these drive from wheelchair vehicles, the whole floor is modified. So instead of just cutting a tunnel in the vehicle and leaving the chassis beams intact, in this case we cut everything away. So when you see the whole floor disappears. So we cut out the chassis beams. We cut it all the way to where the door sills are. So even if the door sill had like a little step in there to get into the vehicle, all that is gone. And then we lower the whole inside by about 100 mil. So that's about, it doesn't seem like that much, but that much can be the difference of getting a wheelchair all the way to the driver's position. So yes, so we modify that so we can understand all the engineering involved in that and all the drawings and all the testing, and because that, there's way more testing involved in that. And I can tell you, we modified the Volkswagen multivan and we modified now lately also the Hyundai Staria. Now the multivan as a donor vehicle is a fantastic vehicle to modify, because you got the right width. You got when you modify the floor and you put the wheelchair behind the steering wheel, the wheelchair virtually sits in the middle of the steering wheel. And you got the right height as well. So we're talking about 1450 or something like that. Because while you're in a wheelchair, you want to have enough height to look out the window. You don't want to be sitting against, looking at the visor or something like that. You still want to have
you also got to get your knees underneath that steering wheel as well, don't you? That's another factor.
100%. So to go back to the vehicle, and we'll talk about the wheelchair in a minute. You have to have a vehicle that can be done. So it's Volkswagen multivan. There was nothing different. There was no other vehicle can be done that way. We did also modify some Volkswagen Caddies, but that was mainly to make an S-bend to the front driver's position. So it wasn't a complete floor. It was more like you come in from the back and then you have like an area for the wheelchair to go to. But we don't build them anymore. But the Volkswagen multivan is a fantastic product, except they're bringing out the new model, the T7, and that vehicle was modeled. They went back to the 50s and 60s to make it a little bit more rounder again and to make it a little bit more. And now it's not even suitable to be modified. It can be modified, but you probably won't be able to get a person in there with a big wheelchair and a large size. So we had to make a decision that, okay, we're going to run out of Volkswagen T6s or T6.1s that we have now. We have to go to the Staria. So we started doing the Staria. But to go back to your question about what happens to the fuel tank and so on. So there's two different types. You can come in from the rear, like the standard, what we do now, where we have the same ramp, the same angles, and then it goes to the main lowered floor. Or like a lot of customers they want to have side access because they still want to have like a tow bar and on the back of the car. So they, even though they're in a chair, they still want to take a boat, or they want to take a caravan or something like that with them. So they have side access. And in that case, we use an underbody lift, which is only about 65 mil thick. And this whole lift is very compact, comes out and then goes up and down from the floor to the main floor, and then later on goes back in again. So these are really neat products from Europe. You can get them from AMF, but you can also get them from a company in Italy that we get them from. And so yeah, when all that equipment is under the vehicle and you put new chassis beams in, because that's what you had to do, we had to replace the original chassis beams. There is exhaust going underneath, and then the fuel tank. Yeah, with the Staria, it's slightly easier, but with the Volkswagen, we were also dealing with what they call AdBlue, an AdBlue system. And that is really the big headache of all us modifiers. What do you do with the AdBlue? We would, if it was for us, we would just go in the computer and go turn off the AdBlue, and but that's not allowed. So AdBlue system is a tank, and it's got like some blue fluid in it that mixes together with the diesel to make cleaner air that comes out the exhaust virtually. So there's a whole component in the exhaust system that you have to rebuild, cut and rebuild and so on. And you have to move that AdBlue tank somewhere as well. So at the front, there's no space anymore where it used to be, because now we've rerouted the whole exhaust system. So we have to somehow, we made a fuel tank that the AdBlue and the fuel tank were virtually merged together in one spot, because there was no other area where we could do it.
So Robert, whenever Volkswagen or Hyundai or Kia or whatever company it is, whenever in their good graces, they think of this fancy new design to their vehicle, what is the impact then for you guys in terms of having, to be able to do a lowered floor conversion on the new version of the Kia or the new?
So you can go from T6 to T7, which is a completely new shape. But even an upgrade to the T6 over time, a little tweak or a little adjustment to the model. The base model is similar, but it changes just a little bit with technology or an added feature to the car.
Yeah, the sensors are suddenly, the impact sensors are somewhere else. So, yeah.
What does that mean for you?
You need to go back to your...
It's a bit of a headache, because
you
want to design something, you put all that time. I mean, to design, let's say, from scratch, a lowered floor Volkswagen, let's say, anywhere between 500 to 1,000 hours goes into that.
Wow.
That's including making the drawings, making manuals for the build manuals, all the testing that's involved. Not even talk about the how much it costs to get everything tested, because we only use independent people that come out from outside. They haven't been involved with the build itself. The only person that's involved when we build the vehicle is our engineer, that was also an independent engineer, but he comes out every second or third day to make sure whatever we're doing is going to be within the Australian design rules, and whatever other regulations there are available. But if there's a model change, that can be a big headache, because now suddenly you were just having a little bit of a run of a you're trying to make a little production run, and then suddenly, this changed, or the bumper has changed, or something even as small as a bumper. Or the back door has changed or something like that. Now we have to do different, we have to redesign the bumper bar, the end caps or whatever, or the way the bumper is attached to the tailgate or to the back of the vehicle. Or even impact sensors inside the vehicle, because you virtually want to put them back again where they were. But suddenly now they're in the way of where the wheelchair goes into the vehicle or something like that. So yes, any change is any change that needs to be made can be positive and negative. Negative because now we have to spend time and money, and you have to go delve into it again and redesign it. But it can also mean that we just made an improvement. Because every time we build something and it's done, we go, next time when we build this, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we're going to, because you're always growing, you're always thinking, how can we make it better, how can we make it stronger, how can we make it safer, how can we make it quicker, because that's another thing. You want to keep the price within a reasonable price range.
Not make the car quicker, make your production quicker.
No. But the production quicker, so that we don't have to charge as much for it, because these drive from wheelchair vehicles, they're expensive. The vehicle, the donor vehicle is already expensive.
Can we just unpack that? So a lot of people might go into this going, I've seen this video, that's what I want. I'm gonna do an assessment with an OT, and it's gonna be an easy tick box system to get it signed off by NDIS, and NDIS will pay for it all. let's go into the costs, because we all, if you've listened to this podcast through the 90 odd episodes that we've done now, the NDIS want to know value for money. The value for money, that's what they're looking for. Is this person going to use it? Is it going to pay itself back? And is it worth NDIS funding it? Because they would hate to fund something that's really expensive and it sits in a garage and never gets used. So let's just unpack a little bit about a cost. If we're talking about, let's unpack it into the 3 different versions, and we're just talking about lowered floor, no hand controls, no any bells and whistles. I don't know if I'm putting you on the spot here, whether you know the prices or not, Robert, but roughly speaking, if you can answer it, how much for the 3rd row conversion, where you're just in the boot area as a wheelchair user?
They're about $32,000.
If we go through to the 2nd row, you're now the middle occupant of the 2nd row.
Yeah, between 35 and 36,000.
And if we want to get through to the front driver's position,
that's a big difference. Then we're talking $110,000.
Yeah, so $110,000 to basically completely remodel your car, and that's what you got to keep in mind. So the value of driving needs to be really well thought out, and that's where your OT really comes into it, and they get to understand this, and they ask you a million questions in regards to why are you going to use this car, how often are you going to use this car, how far do you want to drive, are you going to drive around Australia, are you going to drive to the local shops only on a Sunday. They need to figure out how much is this $110,000 conversion plus the car, is it worth it? Now, if we unpack this podcast and you listen to Jamie's story, or you listen to any of the stories that we've talked about, high level.
Those were our vehicles.
Yeah. If you talk to anyone who has had this conversion done, it opens up their world. So I'm not saying it's not value for money. And Robert, you've probably, and I'll ask you this question in a second, you've probably got some client stories that you might be able to tap into that you really stick with you. But working with your OT, working with the modifying team, like Robert's team at Freedom there, we really need to understand how this is going to change your world, or add value to your world as a client. And that's all very individual. Robert, do you have some favorite stories?
You just mentioned Jamin. So he's actually got 2 of our vehicles. He's got like a Volkswagen multivan that we did, lowered floor, drive from wheelchair, and he's also got like this bus setup that he's got as well. But he was able to get back to work again.
Yeah.
Actually run his own businesses. Doesn't need any help anymore for people driving him around. He can drive himself around now. And also on top of that, you can see all his beautiful videos he makes of the dolphins and the whales and so on swimming up there on the Western Australian coast.
He's a drone photographer.
Yeah, drone.
And it's fascinating to go and have a look at the work that he does. And he's able to drive all the way up and down the side of Western Australia, and that's a lot of kilometers.
Yeah, and other customers, I can't some of the names that say suddenly, listen, I can go to Bunnings now. I can go, I can drive myself to Bunnings and get out of the car and wheel myself through the aisles, get my own products instead of having to do an order online or whatever. I can get out and about.
Or be reliant on someone else to.
Yeah. But the main thing is when these people go through the process with the driver OTs and so on, and they get to driving, it opens up a complete new world for them. They've been sitting at home a lot of times with their head in different areas, and suddenly they become more positive. They see all the whole new world opening up for them all the way, and there's nothing nicer to see. Or hear people tell you how their life has changed because they've it doesn't matter whose vehicle they are, but that they've now can get out and about, drive themselves, have this independence, and yeah, be part of the society, virtually become part of the society again. And yeah, and that's why sometimes a lot of people say the company Freedom Motors, it really gives them freedom. They mention that all the time because that gives them, they're always trying to find a word, and they come back to that same word.
Come back to freedom. It's in the
Yes,
name.
come back to freedom because it's given them the freedom to do anything they want. They can now go and drive as far as they want. They can, because they become independent now. So
and yeah, it's not just people that are driving as well. There's a lot of people that are never drivers or are unable to return to driving as well, and they still get that freedom of being able to get out and about. But we will work with lots of children as well, lots of families with children with disabilities, and
100%.
Absolutely, the families all of a sudden can take their child out with their wheelchair and go to the park and go to the shops and go to friends, meet up with friends and things, and just do normal family activities together. Just makes such a world of difference. Yeah.
100%, because you hear the some of the families who say, oh, we were going to go somewhere, we couldn't be bothered because we had to organize a taxi, and the taxi doesn't come up and doesn't arrive on time, or the taxi arrives and it's the wrong taxi because it doesn't fit,
or it doesn't arrive at all.
Or doesn't arrive at all. We've heard all these horror stories that people they missed their appointments and so on. Yeah. And now, and another thing is, a lot of people need a lot of kids in chairs have medical issues and so on, and they need to be able to go to the doctor or to the hospital.
Yeah.
And now they can 100% make their appointments. And a lot of times it's not just to travel around and go to the beach or whatever. It's also to go to a lot of times hospital trips every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's much easier if you have your own vehicle and you can have your child or your family member in the vehicle and just take them to the hospital on a regular basis. But I like the stories where, we also have a customer that loves going to the beach, and they can take their beach wheelchair in the vehicle now because there's enough room in the star area to have a big wheelchair in the front and a big wheelchair with these big blow-up tires in the back and so on.
Robert, I'm glad you mentioned the Staria again, because I just wanted to do a little shout out because the Drive from Wheelchair in the Staria has been a new product that you've designed and come to the market this year, last year, this year?
No, it was last year. It was virtually last year. We virtually took a whole year to design it.
And I believe that you won an award for that at ATSA.
Yeah, we did. I've got it right here.
You've got it right there. Look at that.
I got it right there.
Hold it in front of you so we can see it. The best new product of the year 2024. ATSA Expo. Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
So, we've been around for a long time, and we never put, if you want to get involved in these type of awards, you have to sort of nominate yourself and so on. And for this year, we put so much time and so much effort, and and this product can do so much good for people. We decided, oh, let's put it in and let's see what happens. And we won the major prize. We actually, it's a share prize with, I think, Permobil. But this gives us recognition, and it also, when we show the guys on the floor, it shows them that, hey, they've all been part of this, because everybody on the floor has done some part. Some guy was the guy that welded the chassis together. The other guy was the person that did all the pop riveting and the gluing. And the other guy was the person that did all the carpeting, because we need to make the cars look like they come from factory, So we got all these experts, and everybody had like a little part in the vehicle. So this is, this is not just me and the company. It's just everybody that's been involved.
The whole team contribution.
So we were really happy to receive that, and it's nice to finally in the industry, because we've been with as a supplier in the industry for many years, and it's the first time we ever won an award or anything like that. So that was really
very well deserved.
Yes, we thought that was we're not doing it for nothing. There's other people recognizing that we're doing a good job and so on. So that was.
A couple of things that I just want to mention here. We mentioned Jamin. Jamin's episode is number 33. I reckon it's a really good listen to anybody that wants to understand what you can do with a vehicle. He's a great guy to listen to. He's a great guy in regards to he's a comedian as well. It's a very good listen, that one, and he just talks about what value it's given to him. Another one to listen to might be Trent Rothel, episode number 63. Not your conversion, freedom conversion, but what goes into actually getting into the driver's seat with a high level spinal cord injury. Christine's another one. That's another conversion as well, where it's drive from wheelchair. But the other episode that I really want to draw your attention to is the one about value for money. And that's episode 64, where we talk to the researchers that talk about the time and money that they spent on researching the return on investment. So for every dollar spent, what value comes back and how quickly this gets paid off. So even if we're talking about $110 conversion, it can be paid back.
110,000.
Oh, sorry. Yes, don't forget the other zeros on the end. Even if it's $110,000 conversion, that can be paid back in as little as 2 years, with the taxes that are paid, with the GST, with the getting out and about, the value for getting a job, all of those type of things. It can be paid back in around 2 years. So listen to that episode. If you're an OT, listen to that episode. If you're a client, listen to that episode. If you're a vehicle modifier, listen to that episode so you can understand what needs to be portrayed to the NDIS for funding reasons. Next thing that I want to say is everybody has heard Robert's passion in the area. I got a little bit nerdy with you as well, Robert, in regards to what actually goes into a van. I love this side of the world. I came out to your workshop. I met Gary. I met yourself. I did a little bit of work for you at one point. I'm a big fan of Freedom Motors. I'm not afraid to say that because of the quality that goes into the products. But your passion for that area, Robert, is fantastic. If anyone wants to meet Robert, he goes to all the ATSA shows and he's there, and you can pick his brain on these areas and get to know them. But if you can't get to an ATSA show, what can they do to test vans out, Robert? How can they test these products out?
Yeah. So like you just said, shows are the way. It doesn't have to be an ATSA show. Next week we got Source Kids up in Brisbane. Those shows are fantastic to go to because not only we are there, our other modifiers are there as well. So you can actually, in one show, in one building, you can actually maybe visit 3 different modifiers. A lot of times that we all got the same vehicles there as well. So you can actually check out the vehicle. You can go from one to the other one and check each other out, and ask the questions that you want to ask. Besides that, we as Freedom, we actually come to you. So if you're living somewhere in Sydney or not too far away, drive, we will actually come to you, and you can get to try the vehicle out on your own. So you get to drive the vehicle. We'll fit the wheelchair in, make sure it all fits properly. We can check the vehicle on your driveway to make sure you can load and unload on your driveway. Some people want to see if it fits in the garage or not. Of course, when we come out, it is always good to have an OT there, because then we're talking to the OT, but also to the person that's going to be in the chair, or the parents, or whoever's involved. And it's better to get them all at the same time, because otherwise you have to do the work double. Because if we see the customer first, then later on the OT wants to see what the customer's talking about and so on. That's very important. That's very important. Or the customer, if they want to, they can come here as well. And then a lot of times when they come here, they get from me a personal trip around the factory, and then you can see people's eyes open up, because they think, oh, wheelchair access business is only like a small thing. But then when they come here, they say, yeah, they got a whole production run here. They got like 8 vehicles on the hoist going at the same time, all different models, all different types. And then they come into another area and there's 6 or 7 vehicles parked in a row, and they're all getting the bumper bars done and the interior fit outs again and so on. And a lot of people, when they come here, they get convinced, hey, this is the place where I should actually have my vehicle done, because it looks like like I said, their eyes open up how things happen here, you know. And
what about outside of Sydney area, Robert? You mentioned there's
yes,
sales reps in Brisbane, Melbourne.
Yes, so we, like I said before in this podcast, we have salespeople in each, or sales managers in each state. So if we have somebody that's interested in Queensland, then we have James Hawker up there in Queensland. If we have somebody that is interested in our product in Victoria, that's where we have Craig Spears, our consultant over there. When you go to South Australia, we now work together with James and Beck Hewitt. That's a husband and wife team that can look after you. When we go to Western Australia, that's where we have Troy and Brooke looking after the Freedom Motors side of the business over there, including running a factory as well. So, and sometimes if customers want to see the vehicle and they live somewhere, let's say in Whoop Whoop, we try to combine, we do like a road trip, and then we try to combine, let's say if we're going, we have to do a whole 2 days trip, we try to get 3 or 4 customers in a certain area that we go to, and people love the fact that you come to them, because a lot of times they don't have the means to come to you. And see it in their own driveway, see it, and they can ask all the questions. An important thing is also that when we go to a customer's house and the OT is there, that we listen to what they say as well, because they have a lot of questions, and sometimes it's very easy to we can only get this and you can only get that, and sometimes we go out of our way to do something special for the customer. They want something, maybe an oxygen bottle attachments in the vehicle somewhere. And you can't just put them somewhere everywhere, because it's also something that can fly around in the car when you're in an accident. So we try to accommodate them as much as possible. And then if it means we have to build some special bracket and need to get it tested or something like that, we'll go out of our way to do these sort of things. And I think that's why we have that reputation. Freedom has a very good reputation in what we do, but also our sales and service. And if you go on our website recently, you'll see now also that we have a web page for warranty, where people can go to and actually fill out the form and put in pictures, so we can see exactly what's going on, so we can help them much easier. But also now we have a page where you can go to, and it actually shows you how to do the restraints. So if customers have somebody else using the vehicle and they're not sure how to explain to them how to use the restraints, they can now go to our website, and there's our videos now.
Excellent.
That my daughters did.
Yeah.
So
family business. Robert, it's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you and pick your brain on what goes into. So people might hear us say high level conversion, and this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the amount of work that goes into a conversion, especially when we want to drive from wheelchair, but even when we're talking about being a passenger in the 3rd or 2nd row. There's so much that goes into it. And what people might not understand is that, especially for me in South Australia, but I know it's very similar for you and Jenny in Queensland, is that we have to get the van to the people that do this, and there's only a handful of people doing this in Australia, even less than a handful. So Freedom Motors is one of those, and we need to send the van to Sydney to actually get the floor lowered. There isn't some people in South Australia doing those conversions all the way through to the driver's seat and 2nd row. So It takes a lot of coordination, and Freedom are there to help you out with that. It's something that people don't always understand, that they can't get it done locally around the corner.
Or immediately either. I think that's the other thing to keep in mind, is that you're in hot demand, aren't you, Robert? So there's going to be a wait, and there's a lead time, and then a turnaround time with how long these vehicles take to actually convert.
That's definitely true. There's a hot demand in what we do, and a lot of people are willing to wait. At the moment, it's a year. It's really trying very hard to bring it down, but it's very hard since COVID. We call it, before COVID, I could advertise for people, and I would have 10 people to choose from if I wanted a vehicle bodybuilder, let's say. They don't exist anymore. They've gone into the COVID black hole. We don't know where to get
new team members.
Because when we have people working on a car, we just don't want anybody just work on the car. It has to be somebody that understands, they're working on the suspension, they're working on an exhaust, fuel tank, fuel lines, brake lines, safety. So we need to have somebody that understands what they're working on. And we do some in-house training. We do bring the MTA out, and they have like fortnightly training in-house. So some of the people get like the basics, underbody too, and so on. But you rather not have to do that, but you want somebody that when you're hiring, that they have all the skills already, but they're very hard to find now. So, we're desperately looking. So if anybody Sydney has an engineering background, loves to recruitment cars or anything like that, we're looking for, we're ready to put 5 people on it if we can.
Yeah. Even if you're listening to this in 5 years' time, because podcast world, it's probably worth getting in contact with Robert in 5 years' time, because we know the demand's there, and it's going to keep being there because of what it offers people in regards to that word that you've got in your title, freedom, and that independence for getting out and about. Before we say goodbye, Robert, and wind up this interview, we're just going to hear from our sponsors that make this show possible.
Williams Occupational Therapy focus their attention on helping people with their mobility needs. From driving to wheelchairs, Williams OT provides help to get people mobile.
Robert, we've just we've had a wonderful conversation with you, which we're very, very thankful and grateful to be able to have access to your brain and all of your knowledge that you've built over the last 40 plus years. And we could continue talking all day, but we need to wrap up there. I think we might think about having another conversation and talking about all of the technical side of things a little bit more, and some of the changes that are going on. But our question that we have for all of our guests at the end of each podcast episode that we would love to ask you is that, we've learned through all of these discussions that driving is not about just getting from A to B. It's about so much more. Do you have a special memory of being in a car, something to do with a car that really comes to mind for you that you'd be happy to share?
Yeah, I definitely have. When I was young, long time ago now, my first car was a Volkswagen Combi, and it was set up as a camper type of thing. I put a kitchen in it, and I had the bed in the back, and I had like a little heater in it, and I had cabinets at the top, and I had some cheap speakers in there, but because the cabinets were that big, it sounded like a boombox and things like that. So $15 stereo system sounded like a Bose, But anyway, me and my friends decided to, hey, let's drive to the south of France, because when you're living in Holland, it's easy to drive to all different countries. So, and I bought the car secondhand, so I didn't know how good it was, or if the engine was going to last. Anyway, we decided to go to the south of France, and it took us a whole day to get there, and we're at a camping. And then we decided to go to Monaco for a day. So we drive the thing to Monaco, park it there, and we're having a good time walking around, the marina, and going to the casino, and, have a look where the Formula One cars go around that S-bend, the S-bend up there. And we walk back, and there's a policeman standing next to the car, and he goes, "Oh, you got the oil leaking from the car," like. And then we pulled the thing out. Oh, there's hardly any oil in it anymore. So we went to a service station, bought some oil, and we had to go back clean up the place because they don't like it in Monaco when you leave a mess. Anyway, we drove back to the camping, and we decided, okay, next day we have to go home. But it was leaking, and it was leaking a lot. So we decided, you know what? We'll just hang a bucket under the vehicle while we're driving, and we'll just see, we'll just catch all the oil, and then, and anyway, we're driving back home to Holland. It's about 900 k's, and every time we slide the door open, we're looking underneath. Yeah, it's still leaking. It's not dripping anymore. It's like a little stream coming out of it now. So anyway, we had 2 buckets. So every time we stopped, every 50 k's we stopped, got the funnel out, put the oil from the bucket into the engine.
Up through the top.
Put another bucket underneath, and we kept them going. And then at the end, the oil was just coming out the bottom as quick as it was going in. So we had to leave the car in France. We just parked it next to the road, locked it all up, and there was a place called Nancy. And we took the train back all the way to Holland. And then the next day we got home. I go, oh shit, how we're gonna get this car back? So my dad had an Opel Ascona at work, and we rented one of those car trailers, to tow a car behind. And I never knew about, you can't tow more than the car in those days, because now all the trailers are braked, but in those days, no. So I'd take my friends with me for a bit of counterweight, have extra weight in the car. And we go and pick up this car in the middle of the night in France, and then we sleep in the back of the car because it's the middle of the night. And the next day we started driving back, and we get through the border from to Belgium, and the guy goes, this is illegal, you can't be towing this heavy car on this heavy trailer behind a little car like this, But anyway, I have not seen anything, keep on going, Anyway, halfway Belgium, we're in the Ardennes, and we figured out that if you go faster than 80 kilometers an hour, the car starts doing this, So I had one guy watching the clock to make sure I wasn't going faster than, because I was the only one with a license as well. Anyway, so somehow we're talking, and before we know it, we're doing 100, 110, and this trailer starts swaying. And we actually had this the combi tied down through the windows with the windows open, tied down with ropes. So this thing was, and I'm looking in the mirror and I'm seeing the trailer just going boom, 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 and the back of the car is being I was, and I'm trying to brake, and they're getting worse and worse, and I see all these cars on the roads just spreading like it was like I opened up, when Moses goes like this, the sea opens up. All these cars on this highway, all disappeared to the side. I needed the whole road, and then my brain suddenly goes, instead of braking, accelerate, and I accelerated out of it, and I stopped the car, and all my friends started hitting in on me like, "Oh, you idiot! You nearly killed us," and stuff like that. Anyway, we got home. We drove home, and we come in Holland, and there is in Holland we have police Porsches. The police are in Porsches, and I see the car there, and I'm going under the bridge, and I think, oh, I hope he's not going to come behind us. And of course, he came behind us, and I end up getting a really big fine. I was allowed to take the car home. We had to go to back roads. Got a big fine out of that. But every time I go to Holland now and I meet my friends, they go always, remember the death trip. Put us on. You killed us.
Well, that is quite a memory, Robert. That is. I love how your engineering brain, from being a 10-year-old working in your dad's workshop, helped you put a bucket underneath the siphon oil back through the top. I could hear your engineering prowess coming to the forefront.
And yes, a lesson in what not to do that you've obviously brought with you throughout your career.
I was young and dumb in those days, so you learn from all the mistakes. So
very good,
wonderful. Thanks so much, Robert.
Robert, it's been a fantastic story. We really want to get you back. We have got a bunch of questions to ask you. Are you happy to come back on and talk about a few different other topics that are related to these vans?
It took a long time to get on in the first place, but now
we won't be able to get you off. People,
I'm happy to come on again.
If you want to talk, got any questions for Robert, put them in the chat below, in the comments below. We'll see those and we'll ask them next time when Robert's on, whether it's to do with what's the difference with a Japanese import, what about hybrids or batteries or those type of things, anything that you've got in regards to van conversions. As you know, he's a very knowledgeable man from listening to this podcast. He's got a lot of insight. We'll get him back on and we'll ask those questions. So, Robert, thanks very much for coming on.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Jenny. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thanks.
Driving Well Occupational Therapy loves working with people of all ages and with all kinds of medical conditions to safely give them the opportunity to explore their driving goals. As we wind up this episode, please remember that the advice provided in this podcast is general in nature. For your specific situation, you will need to get in contact with your local OT, vehicle modifier or mobility dealer and set yourself up with an assessment or trial. Trials really do put you in that driver's seat.
If you like what you've heard, make sure you like, rate and subscribe. It really does make a massive difference. If you or anyone you know would like to share a story about driving with a disability, or you would like to get in contact, find the show notes, or find the resources mentioned in this episode, you can find us on Facebook. Just search @DriveAblePodcast for more information.